Because there are so many misunderstandings about what it is to live with real contentment or without conflict, and that what we often see as some kind of uh, spiritual awakening or enlightenment or liberation, it's really a life lived free of conflict. But there's also a very fundamental difference between what people, I would say, mistakenly refer to as spiritual awakening and what's also very mistakenly referred to as enlightenment or liberation. They are just highfalutin terms. They are way too prideful, because it's like it's as if to sort of say, like, we are some kind of spiritual beings, and if we awaken, then we are fulfilling our true potential as these spiritual higher beings. Now we're sort of living in a higher consciousness, and now we're maybe even contributing to the evolution of mankind to the next level of consciousness, and all this just lifted off stuff that is really a legacy of religions and all the same kind of systems of higher and lower that that just create feudalism and oppression and all the cruelty that we see in the world. So but this kind of what's called an awakening, which could be a glimpse, or maybe sometimes it's a mega glimpse, or mega, just a bigger glimpse, that's one thing. But for that to get established, for whatever is, for that to be processed, so that then there is an impossibility of the return of this conditioning and of ego, those are two very different things. So there's a lot of that moment of insight, any glimpse. It's a very, very delicate moment. So what happens, unfortunately, all too often is that moment, whatever is seen, supposedly, is claimed pridefully. And then the whole point is missed. And then you can't talk about any kind of, then it turns into a deadness, if anything. It's certainly not an awakeness. We are already awake. The default setting is already awake. But when claiming happens and something gets a gift, which is what an insight is always is, when that gets claimed, the point is missed. Yeah, so it's this kind of claiming that is at the heart of any kind of conflict, whether it's an inner conflict or then the portrayal of it outwardly in our outer environment and in the world at large. So the kind of conflict that's created by going against our true nature, it intensifies the conflict that we see outwardly. So what we see outwardly as conflict in the world is really a sum of all the, let's say, inner conflicts that are going on in human beings, in the psyche. Because as soon as we go against what we truly feel, against our nature, by conforming to standards and things that go against our true nature, by things that don't feel completely right, because things are established, there are certain ways of doing things, and if we go down roads that have already been walked and we just follow some system, some other system, anytime that we do something, or we decide basically to ignore what we truly feel, what really is in our nature, then we create conflict. So then we create trouble in our own life, and then we turn around and we say that life is hard and life is difficult, and the real world out there and all that. which is really a world created on conflict. I would say the collective ego, the world of standards and expectations, the world that's kind of human-centered, the whole paradigm in which most humans live, it's based on the conflict. The reason why it's so aggressive is because the force that needs to be applied to maintain it, because it goes against our nature, it would actually be very easy for it to crumble. So it's like trying to swim against a strong stream. So the strong stream would be the going with our nature, and to try and swim against it needs a massive amount of effort. That's what we see outwardly in the world, is this huge effort all the time. You know, in each life individually going through so much anguish and conflict and fears and anxieties and stress and everything to push towards some goal that's been preset, but all the while we're actually going against our own nature. So much stress and collective angst. So that energy, that effort is energy, and that energy gets used only to support the status quo. It gets used to maintain it, to hold it up, because without that effort, it would just crumble. And the pressure on our young ones, on our children, has to be enormous to get to break their will, basically. That's what goes on most of the time, not all the time, obviously. But what happens is that the will needs to be broken enough to conform, to give up the natural inclination to follow itself, to not listen to others, but to follow the inner directive. And when that will is broken, it's the same as, you know, domesticating an animal. Like if people talk in terms of catching a wild horse and breaking its will, it's the same. It's to break the inner energy to just go with what feels right, with the inner directive, because you can't have that following one's own nature and conforming to this outward collective ego. You can't, the two can't coexist. But it seems to take a massive effort to pull out of conformity. Yeah, it's very forbidding. It looks very forbidding. It's meant to look forbidding. It's meant to make you scared, because otherwise everybody would pull out of it. Nobody would go along with the charade and play the game. It has to look dangerous to look inward. Yeah, it has to look. There's a lot of fear mongering about it. It does have to look like a massive effort. But why would it be a massive effort to be true to one's own nature? The effort is the other way. The effort is to maintain the conformity. So if anyone in a scenario like this, if anyone asks about, oh, why am I not happy? Why, you know, like if there's any talk about discontent, then that's always a direct symptom of this massive effort to stay with the conformity. That's what's exhausting. I would say we all know it intuitively from childhood, that it's like a gut-wrenching thing to have one's will be broken. So the stress of it remains until, I mean, it kind of, I guess it's kind of built into it that the stress gets too much and then there's a kind of either there's a burnout or there's uh, yeah, some kind of hitting our heading into the wall, and it's like a fail safe, like a trip switch when the electrical circuit gets overloaded and gets interrupted out for safety reasons. It's the same kind of thing. It's always pulling us back towards our own nature. What is the difference between the inner directive and hedonism? I see many examples of hedonism being portrayed as higher or truer. Hmm. Well, as far as I know, the term hedonism, it could be like a self-indulgence. Yeah, like so if you, I don't know, you overeat, yeah, or your body's telling you that you want some fresh food, some salad or some vegetables, but you keep only eating um I don't know, burgers. If there's a kind of a gluttony, let's say, with it, yeah, that would be maybe hedonism, like I don't know, getting drunk uh all day and eating burgers, or I don't know, something that doesn't feel right. I'm trying to hesitate a little bit because there's nothing wrong with eating burgers or drinking alcohol, but the difference between, so hedonism would be an indulgence just for its own, for indulging sake, and the inner directive would be the kind of the, hey, it'd be nice to eat some fiber, yeah, some vegetables or some salad. That would be the difference. Hedonism, I just associate that word with self-indulgence, like a luxurious attitude. The thing is that like the it's as if like the group will try and look after its individuals, look after in a sense, um, to keep its members, yeah, to keep its membership high. So the what you say is might is, that feels like a massive effort is actually, like I was saying earlier, just the kind of forbidding sense that we get, a sense of danger, a sense of disloyalty, going one's own, being true to one's own nature, yeah, following one's own directive is seen as selfish, arrogant, uh, whatever. But it's all just to maintain that group membership. It's a bit like if you try and unsubscribe from certain platforms and then there's like loads of incentives to stay, yeah, to maintain your subscription. It's a bit like that, except with a lot more force, obviously. But nothing could be less effort. Nothing could be more relaxing. Going with the flow can be easier in conditioning than going it alone. Yeah, you know, going with the flow is one of those phrases that is kind of really gets perverted in that sense, because going with the flow can be just like, you know, not creating waves. You know what I mean? Very easily. So yeah, of course, that's easy in within the conditioning, and you know, as long as the will is directed towards being an active member of that membership group, then of course those things are easy in a sense, because there's a lot of outward, uh, how to say, there are a lot of perks, which are like seductive, you know, tantalizing. Um, None more so than the recognition that's gained, the status, wealth, all those kind of things. I mean, look at the culture. Look how more and more directed it is towards wealth, and how this sort of desperation to appear wealthy, yeah, or somehow make it. That's that's seems to be a big goal. Ever heard of Gurdjieff? Yeah, I've heard the name, but I think that's about it. He spoke of the sly man who lives without tension in both worlds. What does that mean, sly man? Comparable to the idea of the middle way in Buddhism. Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about that either. There's a lot to be said for it. I'm just thinking of a quote I saw once, um, that might be similar to this. Something like silent mind, small circle, happy life. Something like that. There's a lot to be said for that kind of low keyness, but yeah, it's not a those things aren't goals or like ways of living, ways of got to be very careful when talking about ways of living, I think, because it becomes like a studious thing, and whereas actually we're just here to enjoy, we're here to live our life to the fullest. And for one person that can mean, I don't know, traveling the world, and for another person that can mean staying in their home and going out very little and everything in between. So there is no, the sadness is that there is such a uh, scramble for finding the right way, and whereas actually it's only finding the unique way. That's actually, if anything, I would say, like, if you're going to seek something, seek your own way. What do I really want to express? What do I really want to do? Even getting to know one's own talents is a big gift. It's not something we can take for granted. So why waste time looking for directives on how to live, how to eat, how to this, how to that? It's really a massive waste of time, generally speaking. No conflict, being able to be in the illusionary world of conditioning and on one's own almost simultaneously. Yeah. So all I would say about that, the only thing is that uh, so this illusory world of conditioning, the only we live in it in the sense that there is a system. Yeah, if we cross a border, have got to have a passport. There's systematical things like that. If you're going to drive a car, you got to have a license. Um, I don't know. In some countries, you have to join the army as a young person. Yeah, so there are certain unnatural conditions that are imposed, but there is really no world of conditioning ultimately. That there are those kind of systematical things, but then you just live your life. But if you're inwardly free of conflict, then there isn't this. It sounds a little bit like being some kind, reaching some kind of spirituality, and then being in this world, but actually being in the real world, but also living in the illusory world. No, it's too much of big deal is made of it. It's just really a life, uh, living according to one's own nature. And then if things come along that don't feel right, then you know um just being true to oneself in the most common sense way that you could understand that. then there aren't two worlds. It's just life in form with a lot of conditions that are imposed outwardly. And then, of course, there's always a choice. Don't have to get a passport, don't have to get a driver's license, can always go and live in some forest and build a hut. It's all to do with, you're always going to end up, especially if your kind of will is directed to being true to yourself, you're always going to end up in a place which is most favorable for all that you are to be expressed. It's like a dog that wakes up in the morning and is full of energy and just wants to some just want to go out and run and play, others they just want to lie around for a couple of hours before actually going for a walk, really, that's kind of it. Each to their own. So in that sense, the biggest gift really is to find out who you are, meaning in the sense of uh, what your likes and dislikes are, what you really want to express, what are what fires you up. So someone who's being coerced by a family to get the good job, or you know impose a certain standard of what's acceptable, what's not. We're talking last week, or no, not last week, yesterday we were talking about arranged marriage, like like an unnatural imposed condition like that. So if these outer things go against what one really wants, then the choice is always there. Hey, jazz fan number one. Good name. I like that. Spend so much time looking to others for what to do. Yeah. It's natural. It's just what we get. I mean, natural. It's what we get taught to do. The first step is to discredit as kids what we really feel. Yeah. The first thing is that our feelings, what we truly feel, I'm not talking about emotions, I'm not talking about I'm talking about the deepest senses. So that gets discredited as unimportant, as weak, as maybe even uh how do you say, chaotic. Like, yeah, it's got to be under control, otherwise our nature might um run riot somehow. So it's very easily discredited in a way in our childhood, to a degree, because even as kids we have a sense, we're kind of born with a sense of no, like, no, that's not acceptable. So yeah. And then at a certain age, it's kind of there's a time where we become more aware of that, and then it's really a choice whether to say no and reject those things or not. The achievement conditioning creeps in subtle ways. Yes, absolutely. This yeah. So this whole world of ego, let's say, has so many backdoors, so many incentives, so many seductive ways, so much flattery with it. Um, yeah, exactly. The achievement conditioning, which is so quick that it's and yet weirdly so obvious that there's, like, if someone asks you as a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Common sense would say, why would I want to be something when I grow up? I already am something. Yeah. Just as a way of explaining. So that sort of, huh? What are you talking about? That sort of weird uh, thing that gets overlooked so easily, but is actually so obvious. But once that's overlooked and run with, then yes, even in non-duality, someone told me, I don't know, I can't remember if it was in a email or in a one-to-one session or in the chat here. Someone, it doesn't matter. Someone was saying about asking me about someone else who talks about non-duality and saying like, oh, do you know this person? And then they've now joined with someone else because they weren't getting enough views. Yeah, so that now there's more views to be had. But see, the only thing that someone could wish, like what I could wish for you, is that you don't watch non-duality videos anymore. So in a real sense, the achievement, trying to get more views, as with so many like, I guess, YouTube channels or social media platforms where it's good to have views because then maybe you can monetize or whatever. But even there's so much flattery, right? Never mind the monetizing. If you have more views, then you're somehow have achieved something. But it's just ludicrous, right? So even just a move like that, then already, like, what's the who are we talking about? Is that really going to be something genuine? The wish when talking about this, the if there's no conflict, no if we live according to our true nature, then we wouldn't be talking about the subject. I mean, you might have some muddled ways of talking about this, but if you're going in that direction, if there's some in this sort of, if there's some kind of how to say, yeah, I guess achievement drive, it can be excused also with anything. There'll be some kind of spiritual add-on to it, like, oh, it's good to get this message out, you know uh because then we are somehow contributing to the lessening of suffering, and we're uh, helping the evolution of the higher self to the next level of consciousness, or you know all kinds of rubbish like that. Yeah, it's odd. It's an odd thing. As soon as you talk about suffering, as soon as you talk about alleviating suffering, uh, in this when we talk in this context, it's making concessions. It's making concessions to the fact that there is only love. It's making concessions to the fact that everything is already free. So then how seriously can you take this? Yeah, but for me, I'm the really suffering one. Nobody understands me. Everything is love, everything is freedom, but not me, this individual who, yeah, it's just forms of specialness ultimately. And what we were talking about just before, the original directive in childhood that we are not enough, that our feelings don't count. So therefore, if we don't have that, we have nothing really. So now we're like sheep. We're given to the out to looking to others for what to do. So that way we're kind of like an open, it's like open season on us. Then our energy is just given over to that, right? So yeah, once that happens, the achievement drive is the one thing that we think is going to give us energy back, because now we're going to get recognition and approval for what we're doing. Hence the effort to basically get energy back that we gave away originally, or that was taken from us originally. As for spreading this message, that's also like a what? Like now I've even heard like people say that now we're at like some critical stage, and now more and more people are awakening and all this kind of stuff. Who says who? What, they couldn't do that when I don't know, when the Buddha was around, or Jesus, or those are only the sort of well-known people. It really is. That's why I don't really like this sort of ponderance on no self. While in its seed it's not wrong, it's so open for misinterpretation, and it leaves out the fact that really it's about the individual's, this uniqueness. My God, it's so weird to have to talk in this way, but it really is about the individual's fulfillment. The full expression of each individual's uniqueness, talents, abilities. And if you're going to say that that's dualistic somehow, or that, then, you know, yeah, for me, people that say that can just fuck off, because for what? For what? So someone who there's so much, like, again, so much flattery involved. So someone who has maybe some glimpse that there is ultimately no I, then now I've seen it. Now I'm free. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Anyway, that's just my take on it. This no self, no me perspective or way of talking about it is just way too misunderstood. There's not much clarity about what it's really addressing. The me that it talks about is this constructed me that the conditioning has created. So, okay, so we've just discredited the child's feeling altogether. All right, now we have a blank slate. Now we're going to educate them, inculcate them with some programming. Yeah. So that hopefully they're going to focus all their energy and apply themselves to this goal, which is how I want them to look as their parent. Because ultimately, what I want is recognition for me that, wow, look at my child. Look what a good job I did. So actually, I'm using my child's energy to bolster up the ego in me. And I say that's me. So that doesn't exist. It's a figment of my imagination. But yeah, but then the tragedy of it is that the child will actually join in. If it joins in this circus, then it will try and develop images of self that denote specialness, the culmination of which would be the sacrifice of myself for the greater good. Yeah, that would be like, if that would be the ultimate recognition, would be the sacrifice. And ironically, this topic of non-duality and talking about it in this non-self kind of way plays into those hands of like, oh, okay, so now there's like, it becomes a self-denial. It becomes, oh, I always knew that my effort from childhood, this conditioning that drives me to ultimately be willing to sacrifice myself for these standards and these expectations from outside. Now I'm vindicated for that. See, there is no self. So I already knew that because my effort to sacrifice myself was always there. So how valuable can it be if I was prepared to sacrifice it anyway? Yeah. So it's just more suppression. And then there's the delusion and like so many people talking about it, and with some assumption taken from some glimpse that was given as a gift to help the person to maybe see through some problem, or to really show them what life really is, how amazing, what magic this actually is. But no, now it's like, okay, I'm the guru, and now I'm free, and I've listened to others say it in this way so much. Now I've just memorized it, and I can just say it in the same way. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. But yeah, like you say, it creeps in subtle ways in all areas of life. It's not passive, that's for sure. I see when I started going on this monologue about this non-self kind of approach, there was, I don't know, maybe 7 people watching, and now there's 2. So you see how it's just, yeah, it's very yeah. I'm glad if someone is like a, how do you say, like a, this non-duality police, then I'm glad they're not listening, honestly. People like their no self. Yeah. Exactly. Have you had glimpses? Yeah, sure. As a child, I had a ton. All these things, like the fact that ultimately there is no one, the fact that nothing has ever happened, the fact that there is no time, the fact that this isn't going anywhere, all these kind of things. Yeah, that was like, I don't know, I was around 11 or 12, and I kept seeing these things. And so for me, it's like, that's okay, that's clear. Now what? Now it's really life. All right, here we go. Let's enjoy it, So it's not a, for me, it's not a philosophical thing to be, it can't even be put into words, really. So, and there's no reason for anyone who has the least bit curiosity or sincere desire to sort of see what is our true nature, really, what is inside, quote unquote, to have things shown or downloaded in a way that's most understandable to them. But to make the mistake of thinking that because someone has a glimpse, now they've woken up and now they're free, that's a big assumption. Big assumption. And quite tragic, because it can, if the delicacy of that moment is missed, then the ego can just run away with it and live a whole life based on some fallacy and some self-importance. Did these glimpses just come of their own accord? Yeah, of course, of course. These things come as gifts. It couldn't be any more of its own accord. It's like, ultimately, because we were talking about practices the other day as well, right? I was saying at the time that these, like the gifts that we get, or the insights we get, or the freeing that we get is a gift. And in a way, a practice is saying, like, it's making a deal. Yeah. In many cases, not in all cases. Like we're saying, if there's a genuine love for some activity, that's one thing. But a practice to focus, to this, that, it to achieve some kind of an end in this context of this topic is like holding out my hand, saying trying to make a deal. It's basically like sacrificing a chicken to ward away bad spirits. It's like, here, I'll give you something, and in exchange I want this, or I'm just hoping with all my faith and all my hope that my efforts will be seen and approved of, and I will get what I want. But essentially what it is, it's a holding out one's hand for a gift. So how do you feel if you want to give someone a gift from your heart, and that person's already holding their hand out, waiting for something, expecting for something? That's what all these efforts to achieve something are. But the really the felt sense of what a gift is, it's unconditional. It has no strings attached. Yeah, when a parent gives a gift to its child, what does it expect in return? I mean, okay, there can be manipulative ways of giving from parents for sure, but I'm just talking about a real parent loves its child. I'm going to give my child a gift. It's just for the joy that I see in the child's face, right? That's how we are dealt with. When you say, when the Bible, I think, says, like, ask and you shall receive, that's what that is. So you're going with your child through the supermarket or through some shop, and the child asks, "Oh, I really want this," and the parent goes, "Yeah, I'll buy you that," out of love. That's what that is. Ask and you shall receive. So all the manifestation efforts or misunderstandings of, or how do we manifest money and success and all this stuff? What we're really trying, what the truth of it is really that if you ask, you shall receive. And even before you ask, it's already given. So you don't even need to ask. But okay, it's helpful if I'm going with my child through a shop, it's helpful if my child tells me, I want this, because I want to buy it a gift anyway. And it tells me what it wants, all the better, easier for me. But even if it doesn't ask, the readiness to give the gift is already there. So until we respect that about life, we really got nothing. It doesn't matter how hard we work. On the contrary, How many efforts we do, how much we practice this or that, how focused we are, how concentrated we are. If we don't have that respect for the gift-giving nature of life, we have nothing. We miss the point completely. So the I would say that the greatest wealth really is to understand the gift-giving nature of life, of gifts without strings attached, just like a loving parent. Yeah. Um, and the sort of the effort to achieve something that we see so much in the culture, in on social media especially, the all this effort to become wealthy, to become success. What's the formula for success? And whether that's with money or with non spirituality or non-duality or anything else, or health, lifestyle, exercise, diet, all this stuff. It's a bit like life is saying, it's trying to show you the how easy it is. It's as easy as a child asking a parent with full trust that the parent is open and loving and has so much warmth. I really want this. That's how easy it is. And we have the opportunity to see this, to it's like we're kind of to it shows its face to us. But then, okay, if we want something different, then okay, here you go, here's so much money, or enjoy that. Or not, or here is not a lot of money. Because of a lot of the time, of course, we're pursuing things that we think would give us some kind of good standing, without really paying much attention to what are our real desires. Like the child in the shop, if I go with my child to a shop, I'm also not going to buy it any gift. It says, I'll get a sense this is what they truly want, and this is just like, can I have this too? No. It's not about uh yeah, hedonism. Although, no, maybe hedonism is a good thing. I don't even know what it really means. Never mind. I think it's some philosophy, if I'm not mistaken. You use the word love often. How does that relate to chronic illnesses? Well, chronic illnesses um, are telltales of their signs. They're like wake up calls, or, yeah, like banging our head into the wall. There's something in there trying to tell us something, basically. It's an undue stress put on the body by mistaken beliefs, mistaken ideas. It's always psychological in origin. Or you could say it's a decision, it's an active pattern that kind of would try to keep out love. This swimming against the stream that we are talking about earlier. The result of stress, and so many factors can be a part of that, right? So, yeah. But again, it comes down to, I guess, like natural curiosity, or firmness, or like there can be like we do have a will. Yeah. I don't know about free will. That's something different. But we do have a will, which I guess you could say is it's just like our complete energy. So there is a possibility of like, no, I don't accept having to live with this chronic illness all my life. And there is like a readiness to like an openness to see what's truly going on, not what the doctor said, but really to try and see what is at play here. Like, what's this trying to tell me? What's at the root of it psychologically? So there has to be an openness, a willingness. But even if there isn't, still our head will bang into the wall until we are kind of reduced to openness, literally. It depends how stubborn the ego is, you know? So not just biological bad karma then. No, surely not. No. You know, these things can also be like even genetical things. Yeah, there can be things passed down through the family because there is some, I don't know, maybe there's some curse in the family that someone put on the family like several generations ago, and then the family, you know, it kind of seeps into the psychology. Then the parent who maybe was had some extreme experience, then they have a child, and of course with transmitting the fears and the all these views onto the child, and then the child feels messed up, and then they give that onto their child. Of course those things can manifest then as illness, yeah, of course. But like I say, if there is a sincere openness or willingness, just a kind of a, yeah, just openness, then these things get revealed. You know, if someone really has a way of how do you say, mm, yeah, I don't know, I would put it down to natural curiosity and yeah, not accept what other people say really about things, you know, like listen to oneself, not to others. Sometimes relaxation comes and it's like, okay, now what? Yeah, okay, so maybe there's some boredom, so what? Boredom is pretty creative, actually. Where are you writing from, jazz fan number one? I love it that you have that name. Do you think there's like a jazz fan number two on YouTube? It's a good metaphor in a way. I don't know. Does that make sense? Or is allegory or whatever for this topic? Because the I don't know, the sublime expression of music that jazz is, yeah, it's to some people it's just noise. So it means nothing, and it's totally uninteresting. So it's the same with this topic. That's why this whole thing of gaining recognition and being seen, and you know, that's why so many people will have this desire for freedom or say they have, but actually what they're looking for is some kind of ultimate recognition, ultimate validation. Now I'll be seen. Now everybody's going to respect me. But the unwillingness to accept the true ordinariness, which is that it's never seen. Yeah, yeah, that's what makes me think of the example of jazz somehow. But yeah, to this point, sometimes relaxation comes and it's like, now what? Now enjoy life, you know? Yeah, and it's just maybe we don't know what to do and there is some boredom, but yeah. Boredom is really also um I don't know, it's like full of possibilities, right? Yeah. You were saying if I am with my children at the supermarket. Yeah, it's just an example. It's just a way of talking. I say a lot of if I if I say this and then I'm talking with someone and they say that, it's just a imaginary scenario to explain a point, that's all. Do you mean that there can be a healing of chronic illnesses through relaxing into one's true nature? Okay, so again, there is no way to it, because the healing of the illness will also come as a gift. So again, any kind of doing, or now I need to relax into my true nature, would be, okay, now I'm going to do this so that I can get a gift. Yeah, you have to see this, the delicacy of what a gift really is. How do you feel if you get a gift that you've always wished for? That's the sincerity. That's where the heart is. That's the sincerity of the heart, right? So everything is there. That's what you have. That's all of it. That's your center. Everything goes from there, you know. Then there can be a whatever. There can be an intuition. Oh, I should do this, or I don't know. You'll read it. Someone will send you to someone that you've never gone to before who can help you with this thing, or you'll have a dream in which you get shown exactly what the cause of the illness is, or something. Who knows? There is no formula. But it's just about, like, if we think we are so important that we have to make it happen, or that we are capable, we are the doers, we are the ones who are going to do all this, make it come about, that's the hindrance, that's the sticking point. But of course, like, living a life true to oneself, how could that not uh, facilitate healing if there are some health difficulties? That's a very controversial viewpoint of health healing, is it? Okay, so what? I wouldn't say it is, but okay.